Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory in for Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, August the 10th. This is Africa 54.
How an aid group in Kenya is helping women cope with the COVID pandemic. Empowering women to become miners in South Africa. And the World Health Organization sounds the alarm on electronic waste disposal.
Aid groups say COVID-19 is causing greater suffering, both psychologically and economically, to women than men, especially in developing countries like Kenya. Lenny Ruvaga looks at one aid group helping women get through the pandemic, and this report from Nairobi.
Kenyan beautician Cynthia Okewe was full of hope when the business she opened 4 years ago started making a profit. But the COVID pandemic slashed her income by more than 80%, making daily life a struggle and sending her into a deep slump.
So many people have died and I've done so many things because of COVID. And now, even me myself, I got the counseling because I needed to understand myself and know and cope with the COVID-19 and know what's going on around me so that I can cope well without hurting myself, because I got into depression because of the COVID-19.
Okewe got telecounseling help from the Center for Rights Education and Awareness in Nairobi's Kibera, Africa's largest urban slum. The counselors target women and girls who they say are more vulnerable to pandemic shocks than men because of fewer jobs and higher job losses.
With COVID, a lot of things have happened. We've seen an economy that has gone down. We've seen jobs have reduced. So even the small jobs that are available for the women is no longer there. So women are actually strained and they find themselves in tight situations. They have to provide, yet there are no job opportunities.
The counseling service is supported by aid group Care International in Kenya, which has been advocating for women's rights for more than 2 decades. While the COVID pandemic posed a new challenge, the group tells VOA it managed to help about 9,000 women so far.
The psychosocial aspect has come in very strongly because of the need of the differentiated impacts of either COVID-19 or any other issues that women and girls have been facing in Kenya. And this actually has meant that we need to support them to receive psychosocial support because of the mental health issues and also the other effects of COVID-19 on their health.
The United Nations Women's December Gender Assessment Report found nearly half of women-led households affected by COVID needed economic and social support. For thousands of women like Okewe, the counseling has provided a much-needed lifeline. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Nairobi.
In a developing story, the office of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Tuesday is urging all capable Ethiopians to join its military to support the fight against Tigrayan forces. The statement comes roughly 6 weeks after the government declared a unilateral ceasefire in the northern region of Tigray. War erupted in November between Ethiopian federal troops and forces from the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which ruled Ethiopia for 3 decades and now controls Tigray. The government declared a unilateral ceasefire on June the 28th after Tigrayan forces recaptured the regional capital, Mekelle, from federal troops. In recent weeks, fighting has spread to the adjoining Amhara and Afar regions, displacing around 170,000 people, according to the United Nations. About 4 million people in Tigray, Amhara, and Afar are facing emergency or crisis levels of food insecurity, according to the United Nations. Now, Ifrah was born in Somalia and fled the outbreak of war in 2016 at the age of 17. Now she is an international campaigner against female genital mutilation and a high-profile supporter for the United Nations Refugee Agency. Clara Frenk has the report.
Ifrah Ahmed is a Somali refugee. She's also a global campaigner, activist, and the inspiration behind an award-winning film. Ifrah was born in Mogadishu and fled during the Civil War. Smugglers took her to Ireland, where she claimed asylum. There, she began advocating as a survivor of female genital mutilation, a non-medical practice that involves the total or partial removal of the female genitalia. It is widely practiced in Somalia and beyond.
It's very important that not only Somalia, but girls, women and girls around the world, a country where FGM is practiced, and also the girls who are born and European citizens, including Ireland, are protected from the practice.
Ifrah was cut at just 8 years old. She's also overcome rape and escaped child marriage. Still, she went on to lead a campaign to ban FGM in Ireland in 2012.
That was my biggest achievement, and something drove me to say, if I could make it this way, I can do more.
Ifrah's extraordinary journey was the inspiration behind the film A Girl from Mogadishu. In 2010, she established the United Youth of Ireland, an NGO that provides support to young immigrants and refugees. She also works with the United Nations Refugee Agency and runs the Ifrah Foundation, where she advocates for the eradication of FGM in Somalia. Clara Frenk, VOA News.
The mining industry has long been one of South Africa's largest sectors, but women are still a minority in its workforce. Now, a group called Women in Mining South Africa is trying to change that through a mentorship program to help young women enter the field. Linda Givitash reports from Johannesburg.
Bailey Sebetlele is a geologist for Harmony Gold Mining. Mining seemed a natural career choice for the 29-year-old with interests in science and exploration. But with women making up less than 15% of the country's mining workforce, fitting in did not come as easily. She recalls the first day without her male supervisor by her side.
I had to go underground on my own, do the actual work. I got this other man telling me that, no, Bailey, we're not going to listen to you. You're young enough to be my daughter or my granddaughter, so I'm not going to listen to you.
6 years into her career, Sebetlele says she has built trust with her male colleagues, but the path could have been easier with more support. That's why the nonprofit Women in Mining South Africa launched a mentorship program for 42 young mentees, including Sebetlele, this year.
I think that it can become a very lonely journey when you're in these very, very male-dominated industries, and without having some sort of support or guidance, it can force you to leave the industry a lot quicker than you should. So there was definitely a need for mentorship.
Mining has long been a male-dominated industry in South Africa. Women could not legally work underground until 1996. An employer organization called Minerals Council South Africa took a survey about work conditions in the industry and found practical barriers for women.
Though it was generally positive, there were still comments around issues of inadequate physical infrastructure, things like those unisex toilets, and again, PPE, which is suited for women.
PPE, or personal protective equipment. Sebetlele says it's also difficult to find work boots small enough for her feet. The Minerals Council says companies are adapting equipment and the environment to ensure women's safety and comfort on the job. Women in Mining is also trying to boost the number of women in the mining industry by providing career booklets to schools about the many diverse jobs that do not require work underground.
Young girls as early as probably grade 8 or 9 will start seeing what these different faces look like and these different careers look like, so that they're able to understand the subjects that they need to take at school. People are starting to see that it's not just about putting on a hard hat and overalls.
For Sebetlele, having a female mentor to talk through the daily challenges at work has made a difference. As she sets her ambitions higher, seeing other women advance in the sector is encouraging.
For instance, in our corporate office, now with the new appointments, you're seeing women, you're starting to see women occupying those strategic positions. You're starting to see young women taking up space. So I think any young woman can do it with the right guidance and with the right mindset as well.
Positive feedback from this year's 42 mentees has Women in Mining planning to expand its program. The organization is looking at establishing mentorship for mid-career women who want to rise through the corporate ranks next year. Linda Giftash for VOA News, Johannesburg.
A South African court on Tuesday has again postponed a long-delayed corruption trial against former President Jacob Zuma to September 9th. The move follows his hospitalization last week. Zuma was expected to appear at the High Court for a $2 billion arms deal corruption case that led to his sacking as South Africa's deputy president in 2005. Zuma, 79, is serving a 15-month prison sentence after he failed to follow a court order to attend an inquiry in corruption during his time as president. Now moving to the west, in Nigeria's northern Kano State. Janet Peters stirs a thick and frothy brown liquid inside a large cast iron pot, worrying all the while that religious police will come and chase her from the restaurant where she operates, Soraya Ali explains.
In Nigeria's northern Kano State, Janet Peter is stirring a thick and frothy brown liquid, all while fearing that religious police may come and chase her from the restaurant. The liquid is a popular homemade beer called burakutu, and brewers like her are a target for the Hizbah, the religious police who enforce Islamic Sharia law in 12 northern states. They chased Janet from her last brewing site. She now works from a restaurant that provides cover from the Hizbah for now.
Many people like it, so we are pleading with the government to let us continue with this business. Because burakutu is loved and enjoyed, we do not want to be displaced. We need them to leave us alone so that we can continue having an income to help take care of our families. We do not have or know of any other job.
The heavy liquid is widely consumed as food in rural parts of the north. Many say it's healthy. Suleiman Ali, a security guard, said burakutu is filling and free of the chemicals he said are found in bottled beer and local gin.
That is why I like it.
A 4-litre bucket of burakutu costs 500 naira, around $1.22. It's far cheaper than commercially brewed beer, and the 48-year-old mother of two sells between 40 and 80 litres a day. It typically has an alcohol content of 3 to 6%, and brewing, from sorting the sorghum to washing, fermenting, blending and cooking, takes 5 days.
I do this because I grew up watching my mother and members of my family prepare the brew back in my village. When I moved to town and could not find a job, I decided to start making this.
Well, that was Soraya Ali Reuters with that report. Health authorities in Guinea are confirming one death from Marburg virus, a highly infectious hemorrhagic fever similar to Ebola, according to the World Health Organization. It marks the first time that the deadly disease has been identified in West Africa. Guinea's new case was first identified last week, just 2 months after the country was declared free of Ebola, following a brief flare-up earlier this year that killed 12 people. The WHO says the patient, who has since succumbed to the illness, first sought treatment at a local clinic before his condition rapidly deteriorated. Well, we're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, urgent action is needed on the disposal of electronic waste. We'll explain why. Stay with us.
Join me on the next Straight Talk Africa. As countries worldwide work to get shots in arms, many are running into a problem of trust and vaccine hesitancy. Is fake news to blame? And is misinformation on social media hurting vaccination drives across Africa? We'll speak to Ugandan Dr. Joaquim Chikomeko, also a professional fact checker as well as a data journalist, to help us separate medical facts from fiction. Also, shutdowns, showdowns and crackdowns. We'll look at the power struggle between big tech and politicians. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
The World Health Organization is calling for urgent action to improve practices regarding the disposal of electronic waste. The WHO says those mostly affected by the impact of e-waste are women and children in low and middle income countries. Is Africa 54's health correspondent Lino Mudu.
They help us work, communicate, shop, and watch our favorite shows. But observers say When we trash broken or old phones, tablets, or computers, they often end up in the landfills of low and middle-income countries. The World Health Organization says e-waste is wreaking havoc on the health of communities, particularly women and children.
As many as 12.9 million women are working in informal waste sector, which potentially exposes them to toxic e-waste and puts them and their unborn children at risk. WHO says children exposed to e-waste are particularly vulnerable to the toxic chemicals they contain due to the smaller size, less developed organs, and rapid rate of growth and development.
The WHO says the current disposal of e-waste, like open burning of materials or heating and using cyanide salt, nitric acid, or mercury, exposes people working and living near those areas to toxic chemicals. This causes health issues such as impaired lung function, thyroid function, and cardiovascular diseases. E-waste can also cause DNA damage associated with exposure to lead and nickel.
Effective and binding action is urgently needed and required to protect millions of children, adolescents, and expecting mothers from worldwide whose health is jeopardized by the informal processing of discarded electrical and electronic devices, otherwise known as e-waste.
The World Health Organization report reveals that 53.6 million tons of e-waste was produced in 2019, and only 17.4% reached formal waste management or recycling systems. A significant part of the e-waste shipped to low and middle-income countries cannot be refurbished or updated, so the burden of disposing of them lands on the receiving country. In Nigeria, eTerra Technologies aims to make a difference through education and help to properly discard of electronic waste to reduce health hazards.
We enlighten them to the damage that's being caused by improper handling of electronic waste and, for example, the burning of cables at day and night, etc. They know exactly what happens to their bodies when they do that, so they are encouraged to do things the right way, which is eco-friendly.
The United Nations says electronic waste is the world's fastest growing type of domestic waste, mainly supplied by higher consumption rates of electric and electronic equipment, short life cycles, and few options for repair. UN agencies are calling for stronger action on e-waste management worldwide. Linor Moudou, VOA News, Washington.
Humans are unequivocally to blame for global climate change, and massive cuts to greenhouse gas emissions are urgently required if the world is to avoid catastrophic warming, according to a report from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published Monday. Its findings are approved by 195 world governments. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
On the Greek island of Evia, residents flee their homes beneath a sky of burning red as fires consume pristine forests turned to tinder by searing summer heat. This is just one of hundreds of intense fires burning across Greece, Turkey and Italy as summer temperatures have topped 45 degrees Celsius. The message from scientists: climate change is here.
The Mediterranean will be having these forest fires all the time. Therefore, this is just the beginning. It's going to get much worse.
Intense heat and drought have triggered fires from the Mediterranean to Siberia to California. The report, compiled by 200 scientists from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, says temperatures have already risen by 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The United Nations Secretary General described the findings as code red for humanity.
This report tells us that each of the past 4 decades has been the warmest on record since pre-industrial times. Further, it is indisputable that human activities are causing climate change. Human influence is making extreme climate events, including heat waves, heavy rainfall, and droughts, more frequent and severe.
The report warns that global average temperatures will hit 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by 2030 on current trajectories, the limit agreed at the Paris Climate Summit in 2015 and seen as a tipping point by many scientists. That's 10 years earlier than previous forecasts. The report adds that sea level rises of up to 2 meters by the end of the century can't be ruled out, threatening millions of people living in coastal areas. And the Arctic is likely to see at least one ice-free summer by 2050. But scientists emphasize there is a way out. The worst scenarios can be prevented and global warming reversed with drastic cuts to global emissions.
These aren't just small changes we can make. These aren't just sort of tinkering at the edges. These really mean whole-scale changes of the way we use and consume energy. Carbon dioxide is the main one, which we need to get to zero emissions by the middle of the century. But we've also shown that methane is an important gas to reduce. It's caused maybe as much as 0.5 degree of the warming we've already seen.
With the United States rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement under President Joe Biden, scientists hope there will be added momentum as world leaders gather in November for the COP26 Global Climate Summit in Britain. Biden's envoy for climate, John Kerry, said Monday that all major economies must commit to aggressive climate action during this critical decade.
It's actually commissioned by the world's governments, this report. So we're providing information that they want, that they say they need to make political decisions.
Those decisions will decide whether humanity can avert catastrophic climate change. Its impact is already being felt in many parts of the world. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Russia's ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, says the United States has asked 24 Russian diplomats to leave the country when their visas expire in September. The move comes shortly after the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was forced to lay off dozens of Russians working at the embassy. Daria Derguts has the report.
U.S. officials say there is no political gamesmanship behind the decision to ask 24 Russian diplomats to leave the U.S. by September 3rd. State Department spokesman Ned Price said it's all part of the visa renewal process Russian diplomats working in the U.S. have to go through every 3 years.
The 3-year limit on visa validity for Russians, it's nothing new. When visas expire, as you might expect, these individuals are expected to leave the country or apply for an extension.
But Russian officials say the U.S. in effect is forcing the Russians out because it has, quote, tightened visa issuing procedures. The U.S. move comes shortly after Russia barred the U.S. from hiring Russian citizens and third-party citizens to work in the embassy in Moscow. That move forced the U.S. to lay off more than 180 local employees, and that, experts say, put even more pressure on the embassy.
The visa issue is very important, which is to say, Russian students, Russians who want to visit the United States, and so forth, and it works the same way here, need a visa to come to the United States. And the demands on an embassy are so high, and even a big embassy like Moscow was, that you need extra help. And that means that the U.S. government hires local Russians after a clearance who do very important work, most often helping with visas. In a way, think of it as a step toward better cooperation.
The Kremlin's plan to stop allowing Russian citizens to work at the U.S. Embassy was announced in April. All this is part of a long-running, low-level diplomatic battle between Washington and Moscow that's been going on since the Trump administration. The back-and-forth diplomatic battle reached its peak in March 2021, when Russia's ambassador to the U.S., Anatoly Antonov, left the United States to go to Russia for a consultation. Later, the U.S. ambassador in Russia, John Sullivan, was advised to go back to Washington for guidance. Both diplomats are back at their posts, but relations between the two countries remain icy, despite a meeting between U.S. President Biden and Putin in June. Experts believe this only accentuates the difficulty in the bilateral relations.
The Kremlin is pursuing very dangerous policies that contradict our interests, and our most important measures need to be firm in stopping those policies.
Despite the diplomatic back and forth, officials in Moscow and Washington say they are committed to continued engagement on large-scale strategic issues. Daria D. Goods for VOA News, Washington.
Mark Wise, a farmer in Long Island, New York, was on the verge of bankruptcy because of the coronavirus pandemic. But instead of shutting his farm down, Wise turned his land into something amazing. Maxim Avloshenko has the story, narrated by Anna Rice.
Mark Wise, a sixth-generation farmer in Long Island, New York, was hit hard by the COVID pandemic. Facing bankruptcy, he decided to take a risk and turned his land into a small amusement park. Walking through corn mazes, meeting aliens, feeding barn animals, and having fun on a trampoline, Wise's Water Drinker Farm has something for everyone.
We have over 70 acres of outside space, so it was really easy to spread out during COVID and get some fresh air with families. We have our Tulip Festival in the spring. We have our Sunflower Festival in the summer and into fall. Then we go into our fall festival with our pumpkin picking, hay rides, the corn maze.
Water Drinker Farm has events planned for the whole year round, including a Christmas lights festival and Santa Claus in the winter. This farm that was on the brink of bankruptcy now brings smiles as well as income to its owners and visitors alike.
We came here the first time for the Tulip Festival, and it was wonderful. And I was very happy to see that they did so much for the families, especially after the virus, especially for me. And then we heard about the Sunflower Festival, so we came again.
I thought it was good. It was my first time here, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. Just seeing her happy, her having
Watching
fun.
her
The
smile and
sunflowers.
have a good time is the best thing.
Yeah.
As long as she's enjoying it, then we all enjoy it.
We just came back from sunflower picking. I love this farm. We've come here multiple times.
And I saw the llamas. As a souvenir from Water Drinker Farm, visitors can buy flowers and fresh produce. For now, they are enjoying the bright, chewy sunflowers, preparing for the next visit and the fun it'll bring. For Maxima Vloshenka in Long Island, New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Truly amazing. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.